Our next speaker is Hannah Gustafson. She's a Client Service Manager for our Outsourced Regulatory Projects Group. Hannah joined PACE in 2014 after graduating from UW-Madison with a degree in Zoology and International Studies with a concentration in Public Health. Today, Hannah will be discussing a case study on a project in SAP. She has been working on multiple projects in SAP for 2 years and supervising employees also working in the same system. So welcome, Hannah.
All right, thanks for the introduction, Amanda. Like she said, my name is Hannah Gustafson, and today I'm going to discuss a case study in which my team, a group of hazard communication specialists, successfully navigated a large-scale SDS project in SAP. So this afternoon, or evening I guess, I will first go through a few definitions to make sure we're all on the same page. I will introduce my team and our client, and I will discuss the challenge that was presented to us by our client. And then we'll talk about the solutions PACE developed, and finally I will discuss the results of the case study. So before I start, I would like to see a show of hands. How many of you in the audience and online, if you're online, can you type like SAP or something into the chat function? So if you use SAP, can you raise your hand? Okay, great, a good number of people. That just kind of helps me gauge my audience. This might be a little basic for you, but hopefully you get something from it as well. So first I'm going to quickly go through the general functions of the SAP EHS module. SAP is an ERP, which stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and it's a tool used by large corporations and encompasses many areas of production, business, and product lifecycle management. The groups within a company which use SAP for their day-to-day functions are able to integrate, which creates an efficient, effective tool for multi-divisional communication. While this tool is costly, it is a popular choice because of the functionality. I know many of the times EHS staff are stuck with SAP and they're kind of forced to play nicely with it. Going forward, we're only going to talk about the SDS authoring feature of SAP. And when I say SAP, I mean SAP EHS. I'll use the two interchangeably. So a little background on SAP. SAP uses a building block approach to the way it passes data. In SAP lingo, this is called inheriting, from the CAS level up to the finished good. This is very similar to other SDS authoring tools you may be familiar with. CAS level information is collected from Insight, which is Ariel, but they just changed the name recently. Again, I'll probably use them interchangeably. While raw material data collection can be collected from either suppliers or inherited from pure substances in SAP. Typically, this information is inherited from the pure substances in order to keep the information consistent. Intermediates and finished goods are typically populated with inherited data as well. This is a very simplified version of the authoring process in SAP. If you have worked with other authoring programs, this process is probably very familiar to you. The first step is to manually input or load data required for classification. After this is complete, the next task is to run rules. Rules are the programs in SAP that assign various regulatory values like hazard classifications and global inventory list statuses. As the rules are run, templates are applied to the data to essentially shape it to your custom specifications. Now, no system is perfect, and exceptions to rules do exist. Because of this, double-checking your work is absolutely necessary. Occasionally, small, quirky errors will cause issues in your documents and possibly other downstream processes. A common error we correct is the ranges of disclosure, which typically don't display correctly or to your specifications. Usually, there are key places to look for data that's missed or incorrect, and that usually remains pretty consistent in the system. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, sorry, I thought I missed a slide. So now that we've talked about a few specific items, we're all on the same page, let's talk about the details of this case study. Our client is a large, US-based Fortune 500 chemical manufacturer who specializes in coatings, lubricants, fuel additives, and engineered polymers, just to name a few items. As this company grew, the burden of regulatory support also grew with it. Unfortunately, this company was acquiring more product lines and manufacturers than the regulatory team was able to keep up with. With the recent changes in TSCA, REACH, and Prop 65, just to name a couple, their existing staff became bogged down with projects and the day-to-day support was lacking. Who are we? Well, we are a group of SDS authors who specialize in several different authoring programs that you may have heard of. Works, SAP EHS, to name a couple. We also have experience in several small client-specific databases. We are trained in various groups of regulatory legislation, including GHS, OSHA, and DOT. My group specializes in short-term as well as long-term outsourced project management. This means we take our clients' processes and perform them on-site here at our Minneapolis location. Our goal is to become as independent as possible from the client once we have learned the system and the specific nuances. This will lighten the burden of work on the client, and they are able to use their free time to pursue more high-level projects, assured we are taking care of the tasks they have outsourced to us. A few short-term projects have included company acquisitions, where our client is purchasing either a line or acquiring another company, and they are required to author new documents for all materials. Raw material data updates, in which a client is looking to update either a list or all of their raw materials with new regulatory information. Large-scale document generation in a program such as SAP. And finally, FDA or other regulatory body product registrations. A few long-term projects have included SDS request management, where we take the client's SDS requests, either internal or external requests, and author the SDS for them on demand. We have also managed either entire raw material data programs, as well as being the go-to resource for filling out regulatory questionnaires our clients receive, using the information from their database. This is just a small example of the work we can do in a support role. As I'm sure many of you can relate, our client was occupied with an already existing list of tens of thousands of raw materials to manage, the addition of new vendors, as well as a robust R&D team that was continuously developing new products in the lab. As a large company with a small but effective EHS team, the day-to-day tasks such as these were becoming overwhelming. On top of this, the company was acquiring new product lines and businesses quite rapidly. A specific acquisition, which required 20,000 SDSs to be authored, was the tipping point. This number is a combination of raw material SDSs, intermediate SDSs, and SDSs for finished goods. Our client's standard is to produce all SDSs which are used for R&D purposes in plants and storage facilities, and they all make those in-house. The newly acquired products were not coming from a company who used SAP. Entering all of the data fresh was proving to be an overwhelming task. This is a common struggle of SAP implementation. All of the data has to be organized incredibly meticulously and just so in order for it to be loaded into SAP from the original database. We wanted to really work from the ground up to build a customized approach to completing this project. Our goal was to develop a team of individuals who were led by a PACE project manager to lead, organize, and prioritize. We wanted to create an entire team that was dedicated to our client using an outsourced project process model. This approach is best suited for clients with a large internal system where access is easily granted, as opposed to a smaller organization where issues such as server capacity may arise. This chart, this kind of maybe confusing chart, illustrates the workflow between the client, the PACE Client Services Manager, the PACE team, in our case it was a team of hazard communication specialists, as well as the client supplier. I won't get into too many specifics, but I wanted to highlight a couple things. First and foremost, the client can actually outsource their entire SDS requests, letters of declaration requests, raw material requests, and label requests to our team. This effectively lightens the burden of the work that they have to do. Second, the client is relieved of the entire burden of contacting suppliers regarding raw material requests and global inventory requests. As you can see, when the system is in place, the hazard communication specialists contact the suppliers give us the information, and we produce the SDS or label or whatever regulatory document is required. So the client is responsible for system guidance, IT support, and the definition of project scope. Aside from this, all the client has to do is send in the request through the designated pathway, be that an email box or work list, and we take care of the rest. Project management comes from the Client Services Manager, who is responsible for the organization and execution of sub-projects within the project. The project manager also acts as a liaison between the technical specialists and the client and serves as the main contact for questions regarding their contract. Hazard communication specialists are all trained in the fundamentals of authoring GHS SDSs and have experience in many different databases. Our team also has relationships with dozens of vendors, and we are able to leverage that relationship in order to get more detailed regulatory information. We really wanted to create this project as a sustainable, independent process that alleviated as much work as possible from our client. In doing so, the first step would be to familiarize ourselves with the system and processes. To start the training process, we first needed to get access to their system. With an outsourced model such as ourselves, this can be a challenging aspect. There are many ways to go about this depending on what your system requirements are. Some clients use a web-based data management system that can be VPN'd into, while others require more security features. In this case, we were granted access to a remote desktop that's actually housed at our client's headquarters. The next step is the physical training. Our team attended in-person trainings at our clients' offices, learning the nuances of their system and the unique challenges they could face while integrating the new product line. This intensive course covered client-specific details and preferences for authoring documents and classifying materials. Once the team returned, we began the process of authoring PACE standard operating procedures. These documents serve to ensure consistency across the board. We have integrated these SOPs into our training program and train all new employees in the group with these documents. Training on SOPs is documented and tracked through our corporate quality assurance program. In order to provide feedback to our client and to demonstrate the quality of work we are providing, we do review a representative sampling of the work we do. From these reviews, we generate metrics for our client, and we'll actually touch on metrics in a little bit. Of course, the core solution to authoring 20,000 SDSs was to actually author them. This process was achieved by confirming the CAS level information was in the correct place and accurate. We corroborated this information with Ariel or Insight, as well as other chemical database resources. We also verified that SAP was set up correctly to take information we validated and turn it into what we are looking for. We applied our client's template to the data to generate SDSs for 50-plus countries and languages. In order to maintain a consistent workflow, our project manager utilized Microsoft OneDrive and SharePoint to create a task list for SDS requests, among other data requests that they would like us to accomplish. This work was completed in batches, which allowed for a comprehensive review of the body of work. During this process, our project manager worked closely to manage workload and communicate any issues that were arising. The first few weeks of this project contained daily meetings in which the project manager and team discussed questions and troubleshooting techniques with the client. This was a really great way to get more face time with the client and kick off the project to the right start. We found it's easier to troubleshoot face-to-face as opposed to over email. We relied on programs such as Skype, as screen sharing and screen control are valuable tools for remote communication. In order to maintain comprehensive information to our client regarding the status of their project, we continuously compiled metrics from different categories. These metrics are turned into reports that are completely customized to the needs of our client. A few common types of reports we compile are number of SDS completed, number of raw materials reviewed, number and type of data entered into SAP. We utilize this data from a project management standpoint to better understand and manage our workloads. The client also uses this data to gauge the need for additional support, budgeting, as well as their own project management requirements. We at PACE use an internal system that tracks hours spent working on projects and can be developed to also track hours spent on sub-projects within the main project. In this case, we tracked the majority of our data in SharePoint, so the client also had access to the raw data before we processed it into our reports. Our project manager compiled the metrics for reporting. This was done weekly and monthly and at times daily during this project. Reporting is essential to the model of outsourced processes. Our reports provided a high-level view of the data without getting into time-wasting specifics. In addition, reports can also be customized with additional metrics throughout the duration of the project. This is an example of a few of the types of reports we have compiled for our client. In this case, we use Excel's pivot table function to prepare and analyze the data. However, we are also able to use any client system if that's a preference. Chart 1 illustrates the number of SDSs authored and the time we generated per week over the course of the project. For example, in week 3, we generated about 225 or so SDSs. Chart 2 shows the amount of time spent working on CAS validations. As you can see, this number drops completely from week 1 to week 9 as the CAS numbers we validated decreased because we were finishing the project. This is just a small sampling of what we provided to the client in this situation in terms of metrics. To summarize, we worked closely with the client to develop a customized data collection and entry process. We trained with the client to ensure their specifications and requirements were being met, and we implemented this into our QA system to maintain quality across the board. We worked remotely. We were granted remote access to work inside the client's database to update and publish vital regulatory information from a newly acquired product line. We also validated the information given to us by suppliers, as well as maintained our client's relationship with those suppliers. Throughout the duration of this project, metrics were provided to assure that the project was being kept on track. These metrics also serve as valuable pieces of information for budgeting and planning in future years. The result of this project is that our client's supply chain data management is now handled in a cost-effective, proactive manner, allowing their employees to focus on core regulatory activities. I am happy to say that they did meet their deadline with the support of our team. We helped our client gain a better understanding of the time and tools that were needed to execute a massive acquisition, and they are well prepared for future projects of this nature. PACE is actually still supporting this client, and we do continue to enjoy a great working relationship with them. So that is my case study, and I am available for questions during the Q&A after. Thank you.